Hi guys, and today I'm really excited to be talking about the all-new Yamaha YDS-150 digital saxophone. Now, the concept behind this wind synth is simple and brilliant in the sense that it combines the natural key layout of a saxophone along with the functionality of a standard wind synthesizer. And in this sense, it makes it really intuitive and user-friendly. And I suppose in many ways it gives Yamaha a real advantage over their sort of competitors, in the sense that if you take the Yamaha model and the Roland model, they're really brilliant wind synths, but they don't have this key layout, and it takes some time getting used to their sort of touch piece system. And in the case of the Akai, they've got this roller octave key system, which allows you to do 7 wondrous octaves, brilliant in itself, but it does take some getting used to. With this, it just has a standard single octave key. And as I turn it around here, you may also see this cheeky little low A key, which is brilliant when you're doing baritone sounds. Now visually, it's a real standout piece in the sense that it's got this brass bell on the end here. It doesn't really have any bearing in terms of its sort of functionality or playability, but the speaker is partially hidden in here, and there's also a speaker here, so you're getting a combination of sound out of here and here, which is great when you're sort of monitoring it, when you're playing it in its sort of standalone, most basic way possible, which is without any of the wires attached and just as a standalone unit. I suppose that also makes it extra sort of user-friendly in the sense that you get it out of the box, you switch it on, stick some batteries in, and you can be playing straight away. Now, the other thing that Yamaha have really gone to town on is that they're trying to mimic all the sort of qualities and feelings that we have when we're playing the saxophone, when we apply that to this new wind synth, in the sense that, well, aside from the fingering scenario that I've mentioned, the actual sounds are really based on real saxophone samples, and they've gone for soprano, alto, tenor and baritone. And within each of those categories, they're subdivided into different styles of sound. So whether it's classical, pop, rock, funk, that sort of thing. I think altogether there are 72 sounds, but that does include a bank of user-defined sounds where you can edit your own sounds. I'll get into that later on, and a nice little selection of synth sounds as well. I should also mention that Yamaha have set the keys correctly for alto, soprano, baritone and tenor, such that you're in E flat or B flat appropriately, and they've set the right range, the right octaves. So the moment you flick from a B flat on the soprano to a B flat on a baritone, it's suddenly going to pop down the octave, which is really cool. Right, the next subject, expressive capability. Now, its basic functionality is that it has breath pressure resistance, so you blow softly and the sound is quiet, and you blow hard, the sound is loud. I suppose that much is obvious. Beyond that, it doesn't quite have the ability that, say, the Akai does, where you can do the vibrato with your mouth and manipulate the mouthpiece, if you like. So I suppose that brings me on to the subject of this mouthpiece and what is going on with the mouthpiece. You might all be thinking at the moment, it looks like a regular mouthpiece and it looks like it's got a ligature and a reed. You'd be correct, it does. But actually, this is just a basic Yamaha plastic mouthpiece with a plastic reed, and yes, there's a ligature to hold it in place. But the mouthpiece and the reed setup is having no bearing on the sound whatsoever. So, you know, if you sort of change your embouchure, if you were to swallow the mouthpiece or take a tiny amount of mouthpiece in, it's not actually going to have any bearing on the tone that comes out the other side. In fact, I'll just prove the point by blowing a note into this mouthpiece right now. Completely removing the mouthpiece. Exactly the same thing. But there is a purpose for having the mouthpiece here. It makes us feel like we're just on a regular saxophone playing session, as it were. You can set your embouchure approximately right, but you're not really going to be able to do any embouchure work on this. So if you're moving into the Altissimo, there's no point in sort of adjusting things and what have you. You just need to almost blow like it's a recorder and the sound comes out. So in that sense, again, I go back to my opening points, it's very easy to get going on this instrument and produce a great sound. So I really like that aspect of it, But yeah, we've had a few questions coming in already about the reed and the mouthpiece and what have you. And I suppose as an extension to that, you could actually put on your own mouthpiece, so long as it fitted. There's a few little O-rings here, so it need to be the right size. Just put on your own mouthpiece if you wanted your sort of a standard sense of your own comfort and usual playing situation. That might be an option for you, but I'm perfectly happy as it is just with this basic mouthpiece. Okay, so onto more of its expressive features. I mentioned that it's obviously got the breath pressure resistance thing going on. There are some settings in here. We've got a function key on the back here that allow us to set various parameters such as the breath response, the breath pressure resistance, and the key response. Now, the key one for me that I found I had to change from the default is the key response. I was fine with the breath pressure resistance and the breath response. That was okay. The default is sort of somewhere halfway up the scale. But on the key response side of things, I think the scale goes from 1 to 20 and it defaults to 10. What that means is Yamaha are trying to give you the option that if you don't want all those sort of unwanted little blips that you get between notes, for example, when you're changing notes over the break, you can set the scale higher and it sort of avoids those nasty sounds. But if you set it to the extreme end of the scale, number 20, and you're trying to play something fast, there's so much sort of lag that for me it's almost not worth it. You know, you'd have to be playing some really slow stuff in order to use that number effectively. So, and I found that setting it at 10 with the default was just also too laggy for me. So I actually moved it to the other end of the scale. I moved it to 1 or 2 or something, and then I got that instant key response. So that was much more preferable for me. And of course, you guys can set it exactly how you like. But it's nice that they do give you that choice from 1 to 20, depending on where you're up to with the way you like to play. There's also a really cool thing down here by the right thumb hook. It's almost like a sort of gear stick toggle thing. Yamaha are calling it the analog controller. And this gives you various expressive options such as pitch bend, portamento, and modulation or vibrato. So you can set the parameters such that they vary from, extreme pitch bend, like 1 octave's worth of pitch bend, down to just a semitone. And I'll get into how we change those settings in a little bit. The other really cool thing about this Wind Synth is that it has a dedicated app that you can load onto your smart device, which connects via Bluetooth. And within that app, it allows you to change sounds a little bit more easily. You can edit the sounds, you can add effects and various other parameters. You can change the transposition, and the really cool thing, you can change the Altissimo fingerings or set your Altissimo fingerings to exactly what you desire. So I've already got F sharp, G, G sharp and A programmed in. In fact, that's a top B flat there, but I don't think I've got the B programmed in. Yep, that's not working, so I'm just going to demonstrate setting that right now. Simply hold down the fingering for 1 second. You can see it flashing up there, and then you just select the note you want. So it's going to be a B, it's going to be a B5 because it's into the 5th octave. Register new fingering, it's loading. And that should be it. I'll just hit refresh. There you go, top B Altissimo. So that's one aspect of the app. So now let's look at some of the voices in a little bit more detail. So on the app here, I've got it set to alto sax and alto sax 1, which is pop. If I just do the same thing but on soprano sax, you can hear that it transposes itself naturally just by changing the sound bank. I'm going to do the same thing now with tenor. Once again, it's naturally transposed. So that is tenor sax 1 pop. I'll just scroll through a few different sounds so you can get an idea of the variety. This is jazzy. This one's breathy. What else we got here? Funky. And maybe one more. We'll take rich classic. And within each sound, you can actually change the detailed voice settings as well. So let's just muck around a little bit with that. So it defaults to LPF, which I think is low pass filter. And if I change it to chorus, we'll see what we do to the sound. Yep, that alters it quite radically. Let's move it to phaser. And then the other thing to mention, I mentioned earlier the analog controller that we've got down here. So currently it's set on the mode of pitch bend. So if I was just to play an A, see, I'm bending it down a single semitone, but within the app I can change that to, let's just try 4 semitones. So all sorts of editability within the app, as you can hear there. So yeah, I mean, so much scope. It takes quite a lot of getting used to, really, the actual possibilities from this instrument, but it's a lot of fun, a lot of excitement to be had from this new device. So my conclusions on the instrument overall are that it's something completely unique. We've just never seen anything like this before in the wind synth market. So, you know, well done Yamaha for coming up with this innovation for a start. In terms of how it's going to appeal to players out there, I think it's probably going to have more popular appeal amongst the recreational players, in the sense that for a start it offers a great possibility for doing silent practice at home. Obviously you just need to load up some batteries or plug it in with the USB cable, and you can practice for hours at night without bothering the neighbours. So that's one brilliant thing. But it does have, you know, gigability possibilities. You can take it out and it can replace your alto sax and your function band, or you can just add it to your armory of tools out there and impress everyone in the audience. And then also, I suppose at the same time, you can use it as a recording device at home if you wanted to patch it into your music software. Professional players may prefer the feel or rather they may prefer to go for the non-saxophone sounds that you get in something like an Akai, where they're not trying to pretend to emulate saxophone sounds, because even though the sounds are pretty good, they're not quite on the money in terms of being perfect emulations of, you know, a natural saxophone sound. It's so hard to get that really down, but they've done a pretty good job, and I'm actually enjoying the sounds coming out the speaker as I'm sitting here playing them to you. So overall, such a great concept. I think this is going to be really popular. So I thoroughly encourage you guys to order up. These things are going like hotcakes at the moment, and I can only see it continuing that way for some time.